2. So the session is being recorded now. The poll is still in action. We can let that go on. People are still joining as well. So yeah, the answers are coming through, and we'll give them time to do that. If you want, if you're ready to, Chris, it's 2 minutes past. We can
Let's
kick
get
on,
going
right?
then. Yeah, fantastic. Thanks, Max. So, guys, really well done for turning up here. It's 3 o'clock on Wednesday afternoon, and we've got a great session looking at starting the job search with Danny Matthews from the Co-op. As I was just saying previously, we're going to be doing at least 7 more sessions like this with different major employers. Ultimately, it's our job, mine and Max's, to make sure that we go out there and work with our employer partners to bring you the best information. It's a tough old market out there potentially with the job market, but actually that's what we read in the papers. But when I speak to employers, there's so many other skills and bits of advice that they give us. So it's really important that we can share that with our network. And again, everything we do at Pathway CTM is about your attitude. And by you turning up to sessions like this, we want to support you. And that's why Max is going to be on every one of these sessions with me to make sure that any support that you need in follow-up from any of these sessions, anyone you want us to introduce you to, we can work and try and help you do that. So looking forward to the session today. So let's have a quick look at the agenda, Max.
Absolutely.
This is when it goes in slow motion. Or maybe it's because I talk way too quickly. So introductions, then we're going to look into a poll, just asking you guys what we're asking you at the moment. Then we're going to go to Danny and meet the Co-op. And Danny's got a really cool activity there where we're going to be looking at one of the job descriptions as an example, because it's actually a really fine art of tackling and dissecting a job description, because you can waste so much time in your life looking through job descriptions that maybe aren't relevant for you. So we want to try and take that time back and give it to you in spades today. And then opportunities with the Co-op as well. Why we're working with the Co-op and Danny is because they've got so many different roles and sort of sectors within a sector, so to speak, in terms of opportunities at the Co-op. So I think it's a really good example to go, okay, if I wanted to do X, Y, Z, did I really know that much about that role? Could I have opened it up a little bit more and then take that sort of knowledge and attitude into your job search? And then Q&A, guys. Max, what would you say about Q&A and top tips to getting that right today?
Q&A, I mean, look, no question is a silly question, but think about the content that we're going through. Think about the content that Danny's going to be presenting to you as well. And think about where you struggle or where you're not sure, where you're unclear, because that's where we can help you. I said it earlier in the session, but between Danny and Chris, they have so much experience and information between them. You're really in the right place. And when you hear Danny speak and what he speaks about, he has a lot of experience and knowledge. So use it. Like we said, no question is a silly question. Don't be afraid. There's probably more than one of you thinking it. It just takes one of you to ask the question and we'll share the information.
Definitely. And guys, do pop your questions in the chat box. So Max and I will look at the chat box. Oh, sorry, Q&A box. I've got it wrong. The Q&A box, have a look at the bottom or at the top of your screen. If you're dialed in, you won't be able to access it, but at least you'll be able to listen to everything. But Q&A box is what we're going to look at to make sure that we're answering the questions that you have. And if you've got any extra comments, put them in the chat box. We're not going to ask, we're not going to look there for our questions, but if there's any extra comments you want to make, whack those in the chat box. So stick your questions in the Q&A box. If there's some really good ones during the session, we'll ask them out as we go. Otherwise, we'll probably save them up and just smash through them at the end for Q&A. If you do want to speak, raise your hand and Max will let you speak as well. Let's just go to the next slide, please. Cool. So guys, I'm not sure if I did introduce myself, but I'm the founder, CEO of Pathway CTM. I'm going to be locked into every single Wednesday, 3 till 4, because this is probably the biggest project of my summer, because I really believe in helping throughout lockdown and making sure that we can give you guys amazing information. Whether you're year 11, 13, looking for work this summer, if you're not in education, employment training, looking for work this summer, or indeed if you're in year 12 and just in here, or year 10 even, and just want to learn more skills, this program is for you. And Max is a really important part of that, because his job is to support young people throughout our program. Max, over to you.
So yeah, so my name's Max. As it says there, I'm the outreach manager here at Pathway CTM. What does that actually mean though? So I spend a lot of my time going out to schools virtually, talking about how you can write a good CV for a job application, but also how you can approach interviews, how you can prepare for them, how you can approach assessment centres and how to prepare for them. What we want to do is try and help break down those myths that you guys have, or those fears that you might have and you don't know who to ask. Because I used to work in early careers recruitment before I joined Pathway CTM, so I've interviewed hundreds of students, hundreds of young people, 16 to 18, 19, 20 years old. And there are a lot of fears. Let's debunk them. There's a lot of myths. Let's get you prepared and give you the right opportunities and position to go forward and get that job that you want. So that's what I do. But also I provide the support for the application. So I've worked with the co-op to understand what is their application process, what's their selection process, how do they interview, how do they assess, so I can prepare students for those roles. You bring the skills, I'll just show you how to display them and how to bring them through. That's enough about me. What we are going to do, almost all of you have answered the poll, which is great. So there's just a few more of you to get those answers in. And whilst you do, we are actually going to meet Danny. We've talked about him. We've talked about the co-op. Danny, welcome. How are you?
Yeah, really well, thanks very much. Really well, thanks. So I work at the co-op. So Danny Matthews, I work at the co-op, which is probably best known for its food stores, so kind of local corner shops, as many people describe us. And we're much more than that. That is what I would say. And Chris has referenced already how many different sectors and industries sit within one organisation. So I'm really glad to be here. Hopefully, I can share some of my my knowledge and my from my day-to-day role, which is to lead on all of our recruitment of apprenticeships. And I also do a lot of work in our community as well, so kind of running employability initiatives and providing support to those who are further away from the workplace, and helping them kind of develop their employability and hopefully get a job with the co-op, which is it's great.
And then it just also you're a member of the ISC as well, just to let young people know about that, because that's you get so much information and knowledge and contacts from there. And I think you've been a board member. I'm not sure if you're still currently a board member too.
Yeah, so I on top of everything else that I do, I'm also kind of part of the apprenticeship steering group at the Institute of Student Employees. So for everyone's benefit on the call, that's just effectively a network of lots of different organizations. Many of them are businesses that you probably will have heard of before. Most of the kind of big retailers. Actually, I was just on a call before this session with Disney and with M&S as well. So yeah, so a big network there, which I'm part of, and I'm also what they call a non-executive board director. Unfortunately, that means I don't get paid for it. But yeah, I'm a non-exec board director of a charity in Manchester as well, and I also sit on the board of a youth employment initiative within Greater Manchester. Which the reason why it's Manchester is because that's where I work. So the co-op's head office is in Manchester, and I live up in the sunny north today. So yeah.
See, guys, we get you the best. We get you the best people. Like I say, Max, how are we looking on those polls?
Right, let's have a look. Let me end the polling. Almost everybody answered. Let's share the results. Tell me if you can see the results from your side, Chris. I'll go with the first question. So first question was, how are you coping with COVID-19 and virtual learning? Only 4% love it, Chris. Then on the opposite scale, 58% are a bit up and down, and 20% have found it a bit challenging. 18% are a bit indifferent, which is kind of what we've seen replicated through other sessions that we've done and other times we've asked about this. We understand it's difficult. We know that this situation is tricky, but that's why we're here to help you feel more assured about your future, because it is a bright future. Can you see the poll, Chris?
We can indeed, and over 50% are from year 11s and 13s. We do have those that aren't in education and employment or training at the moment. So well done for getting on this session today, guys. And then we also have 38% from other year groups. So well done for being nice and proactive and getting these skills on your CV, I suppose. And well done as well for the 3 teachers who are on. Might be careers teachers, might be a head of sixth forms, whatever it might be. You guys are also welcome too.
So then we've asked, what are you considering for your next step? 40% don't know, and that's absolutely fine. And you're in the right place for that. It's okay to not know. We've got knowledge. We'll pass it on. We'll help you make those decisions. 30% are looking at apprenticeships, which is also good to hear. 24% looking at university. 6% are looking at going straight into a job. And again, I'll repeat it. You'll see all the options that Co-op has, and you'll see that there's lots of choices that you can be making. Chris, next question.
Yeah, I will do. And Danny, I want to come to you when we kick off. And because in my opinion, getting a job when there's all these apprenticeships out there is almost like, why would I get a job without the qualification? But I wonder what you think about that, Danny. But the last point is what are you hoping to get out of this session? And 50% want to learn how to conduct your job search better. 42% how to pick the right role for you. And 24%, Danny, opportunities with the co-op. So there we go. It's good to see you guys on board for different reasons, but learning how to conduct that job search is the main reason that we're here, really, and to get going with it. So let's move on to the next slide, shall we, Max? And with no further ado,
bear with me. I'm going to get rid of that. Right.
We will hand over to Danny. Danny, over to you for this slide. And indeed, a job versus an apprenticeship, just to kick us off.
Yeah, so first let's kind of talk about the co-op and kind of who we are. So I mentioned many people know us as the kind of the corner shop, the retailer, but without sounding cringeworthily corporate, we're definitely more than that. So what a lot of people don't realize is that the co-op is the largest cooperative in the world, and what that essentially means is a cooperative is a member-owned business. So there's lots of different types of businesses that you can have. So you can have a sole trader, which means there's one person who owns it, a partnership, limited companies. I'm not going to give you a business studies lesson, but effectively a cooperative is one type of business which is owned by its members. So it's not owned by shareholders. We don't report to the city, and it's not kind of floated on the stock exchange. Essentially, I don't think I've got it on me actually, my membership card. So you pay £1 as a member, and you have an equal say in how the cooperative is run, what our ambitions are, what our big focuses are, and what is the impact that we as an organisation need to have to our communities. And every member has an equal say, whether you're the chief executive of the co-op or whether you're a 16-year-old individual working in one of our food stores, or an 85-year-old individual who's retired and shops regularly with ourselves. And the whole purpose and the whole ethos of being a co-op is about creating shared value. So it's not about lining the pockets of people. It's absolutely about providing real value to everybody that chips in, that puts their money into a cooperative. And you really see that through how we've supported communities over the last 140 years or so. Our business has been going since 1844, started in Rochdale. Every single year, we give money back to our members and our customers, but also give money back to our communities. And even only in the last 3 years, we've given £60 million back to local community funds. And we'll touch on that later on in terms of what opportunities are around in that space.
Danny, just to link this back in, so a cooperative, quite a unique model, and you're talking about values-based, etc. Did that affect you when you went to go and work there? Because you obviously did what young people are doing. You have to go and pick your job. Did you look at this sort of stuff and pick it for you?
Yeah, I did, and it was quite interesting actually. So I used to work. I went through the university route and went to work for a retailer called Lidl, which many people might know as the German discount retailer. And that organization is very commercial, really fast paced and challenging. And the co-op actually, is very commercial, very fast paced. But one thing that really stood out for me when I was looking at opportunities, when I wanted my next challenge in my career, was kind of making sure that organization was genuine and ethical in how they operated, how they supported their colleagues and their staff. And that for me was a really big pull of applying to the co-op. And to be honest, is one of the biggest benefits to me in my role, because without that kind of ethical value, without that supportive approach, without that real ambition to support our communities and young people and everyone, to be honest, into meaningful employment and to create that better community, there's no way would we have 1,000 apprentices on our program at any one time across 30 different apprenticeship programs, because our business is committed to that, and that is kind of core to our values as an organization. So yeah, most people know the co-op as a corner shop. Much more than that. Community focused business, largest co-op in the world, 3,000 stores or funeral homes across food, funeral care and legal services, as well as our wholesale business as well.
Good stuff. Max, you in charge of the slides? Yeah, nice one. Post 16 options then, Danny, just top line, what are we looking at here?
Yeah, pretty confusing, I think, for many people. So just to simplify what the options are, you could continue after school, post 16 into education. A lot of people decide to go down this route. So this is often known as going to college. usually into further education to study A levels or some sort of vocational qualification, such as a BTEC, for argument's sake. You could go into an apprenticeship, usually at level 2, which is GCSE level, or level 3 equivalent at A level, or a traineeship as well, which is similar to an apprenticeship in some which way, shape, or form. Effectively, work experience within an organisation, usually paid, but not necessarily having to be from the government. Or you could go into part-time educational training. I think this is, Chris, you asked a question earlier on around, why should you go into a job or go into an apprenticeship? What's the difference? I think, ideally we would encourage anybody to go on and better themselves from a qualification point of view and strive for that. But there's absolutely nothing wrong if an individual felt like actually they weren't ready to learn or to study at the same time as working, and actually securing employment is right for them in their personal life or their family life, but also from a career point of view. So you could technically go on into work, albeit it's definitely recommended to try and kind of develop yourself post 16, particularly in further education, be that through an apprenticeship or college.
Good stuff. So for the year 11s in particular, and I think now let's have a look at post 18, just to make sure we're covering all these angles.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, lots of different options, but really simply, so you can go on to further education, also known as higher education in this instance. So that's usually going through the university route or university college route to gain a qualification at level 4 and above. You could go on to an apprenticeship, so you could go on to, arguably you can go on to an intermediate apprenticeship at any level, from level 2, 3, 4, or even a degree apprenticeship, which is absolutely what it says on the tin. It is an apprenticeship and you get a degree from it. What's not to like about it? You can go into employment. So we do see a lot of individuals leaving college and thinking, do you know what, I'm just ready for the world of work, and I'm not necessarily wanting to study. So going straight into work is an option. You could go into an internship or some sort of work experience, just maybe over the summer between an option, or potentially just in that kind of that gap year, which is referenced at the bottom there. I think it's important to remember that obviously some of these elements come with qualifications, some of them provide work experience. Both are really important to securing a role at any age, let alone kind of post 18.
Yeah, I do wonder, guys, just while we go on to the next slide, just in the chat box, has COVID and lockdown meant you're more likely to go to uni or less likely? What are people thinking? I think there were quite a few percentage that were still thinking, about 20% thinking of uni. I just wonder the COVID impact on that. Just be good to know. If you do have time, whack it in the chat box. So Danny, we just want to get started then. The basics of what do we need before we embark on this, I guess, stressful, exciting journey of getting our first job, or indeed the job that we really want to continue with. It might not even be your first job.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, I think before I jump into the content, I think it's important to call out that what I'll cover off today, it's not necessarily just about apprenticeships. Even if you decide to go to university, and by going through university, you need to get a part-time job in a food store or a restaurant or whatever that might be. All of the things that we'll cover today will help in some which way, shape, or form. And arguably, even applying to university or college, there are things in here which might help. So I think the phrase on the left for me is the most important element of any type of kind of job or career decision, and that's all about understanding who you are. So what can you do, also known as what skills do you have, what do you know about, also known as what knowledge do you have. So where have you got that from college or university or life potentially as well, and what you're interested in as well. There's a really great saying around, what you're interested in is what you'll be good at, and I really believe that, because you're passionate, you're invested, and you're committed to doing a great job, and employers can see that in the application process as well. So starting off, understanding who you are, what your interests are, what can you do, what do you know. And I think the important thing to call out is it's okay if that list doesn't contain 1,050 things, because reality is that a career of your life, you'll build those skills, you'll build that knowledge over time. So many employers who will be looking for entry level candidates or applications for apprenticeships or part-time roles in food shops, whatever that might be, will account for the fact that a lot of individuals who apply to those roles don't have 55 years worth of work experience, as said. So in terms of some of the practical elements to get started, the two on the left are probably really helpful. So having a CV, and that doesn't necessarily mean you've got to have, again, loads of work experience to have a CV. You absolutely don't. Educational background can go on there, interests, hobbies, personal statement, which is essentially you saying kind of a little bit about you, who you are, and what you're there for, is really important as well. And a bit of a top tip, and I'm not sure, Chris, if there's any other companies covering off CV writing in their sessions. But
not yet, it's not organised yet. No.
Okay, so if that isn't covered, one of the best things I would advise anyone on this call to do, whether you've got experience or not, whether you're a student or a teacher, there's a career CV builder on our jobs website. So jobs.coop.co.uk. I'll pop the link in the chat a little bit later on. That'll help you build the CV from scratch, so you don't have to worry about how it looks. We've used lots of research from employers to help shape what that CV could look like. So you've got your CV, really helpful tool. Important to remember that is not one copy and paste document that you'll use all of the time. You must tailor it depending on the job that you're applying to. So I used to work in a restaurant when I was younger. I also used to be a buyer for Lidl. I'm now a recruiter of apprentices. If I apply for a job in a restaurant next, I'm not going to have lots of content on there about my recruitment experience for apprenticeships. I'm probably going to add more detail on there about my time working in a restaurant previously. Same if I went for a recruitment job. So yeah, it's about dialing up and dialing down and amending that CV as such. And we're not going to spend too much time on CV today. Cover letter, really important. Top tip on that, no more than a page. Please, please, please spell check everything. The amount of covering letters that I've read in my time which have the wrong company name on there, I think is just the biggest thing I would call out. Try and keep it very short and sweet. So whilst I say no more than a page, try and use as few words as possible, just because obviously employers will often read over covering letters and CVs very quickly. So if the less words you can use, but to get the same point across is really key. The other two on the right hand side, so LinkedIn and Strengths Profile. So the Strengths Profile, Chris, I don't know if you want to say a little bit about how that works.
Yeah, definitely. And so we've got a free strengths profile for you guys for turning up to these sessions. And next week, we're actually going to focus on a session on how you can talk about your strengths. So do try and get that done. We'll follow up on an email after this with your strengths profile to those who stay on until the end. But basically, it's just a nice little, normally cost money, but we've got it for free for you guys. A nice little compact report that tells you what you're good at and maybe what your weaknesses are. So we find it really, really useful. And Danny, the reason I've got that there is because over 50% of employers now actually use strengths as a recruitment tool. So I think that's quite inspiring, because it's not maybe about what experience don't you have, it's about what do you have in terms of your strengths. So I think that's quite a thing to get behind with those young people who maybe don't have all the experiences, particularly because of lockdown, because we can't get outside.
Yeah. There is a growing trend of employers using strengths-based recruitment in their processes. I would call out that a lot of recruitment is still what we call competency-based. So the kind of questions that you might get there are, tell me about a time when you have shown teamwork or something like that. The biggest call out, I would say, is that everybody, if they've been through an educational system, they've had some sort of work experience, will have good examples of a lot of the things that employers are asking for. It's not always about experience in a workplace. So if you've worked with a football team, whether you've worked with a group of students in a school, all of that is really, really good experience that employers want to hear about when it comes to that competency piece. So just because an employer asks you a question in that space, tell me about a time when, don't always go to the place of it has to be about work experience in a working environment as such. And the fourth point there, LinkedIn. So really powerful tool. There obviously is an age limit to when you can sign up to LinkedIn. I'm not entirely sure what that is, but I do know it's not, you can't be a 5-year-old and sign
16.
up for LinkedIn. Yeah, 16. So yeah, LinkedIn's a really powerful tool. It's effectively like social network for professionals. It's not Instagram, it's not Snapchat, and it's not Facebook in terms of, it's not that engaging in terms of kind of social content, but there's some really great ways that you can use LinkedIn. There's lots of learning content on there. They post jobs, employers will post jobs in there, so a great place to find vacancies. And also, and this is the power of LinkedIn, is all about your network. So having that, building that network over time, people that you meet, people you work with, teachers, me even. So if you've got LinkedIn, send me a LinkedIn request after this session, and then and you can build your network over time. And what that now allows you to do is hear about and understand different opportunities which might be appropriate for.
And Danny, just in layman's terms, there's the official route into employment, and then there's the unofficial route into employment. You know, the who you know, the network. They often say that those who maybe go to private schools, for example, they have an automatic network and an old boys network, which sometimes makes it easier for them. Like, no kidding around. Sometimes it's who you know that can help you get that level up. So LinkedIn is almost a way that I try and think about it as I want to build my network and make sure that if any opportunity comes my way, I can get in through that sort of back door if there ever is one, so to speak.
Yeah. Sadly, it is still the case, unfortunately, in society where there are a lot of opportunities. I think there was a harrowing statistic: around 80% of all actual jobs are never advertised,
Wow.
which I thought was worrying, if I'm being honest. But let's not focus about those 80%. Let's focus about the 30% of those vacancies. And using tools like LinkedIn can really build that network up and help you to get the opportunities that you want. Importantly, don't just think about your network though as a route into a business. Think about it as a way of gaining experience, knowledge, skills, turning up to these kind of sessions, following people that you're interested in to hear about what they, their thoughts and their thinking on specific subjects as well. So use your network more than just a way of opening a door as such.
Yeah, and guys, we will be doing sessions on LinkedIn, which will be really interesting, and the CV cover letter as well. But we're not going to go into too much detail on those today. But Danny, thanks. That's a great top line overview. Any questions, let us know. All right, to move on to the next slide.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Fab. So let's imagine that we've done that great bit there around skills and what we're interested in, and we've got an idea as to what that route might look like. So importantly, you need to have a really good idea as to what opportunity you're looking for. There's no point in looking for full-time jobs if you're only interested in part-time vacancies. Full-time, just to let everybody know, usually in the region of 37.5 hours a week. Anything less than that would be classified as part-time. Or is it an apprenticeship that you're looking for? Is it a graduate scheme that you're interested in? So being really specific around the type of opportunity that you want is for me the starting point. Otherwise, you're trying to look for a needle in a haystack. Searching job boards, so using tools like Indeed and Reed and specific job boards for if you're looking for apprenticeships, then Pathway is a great way of finding out about a lot of those opportunities. But also tools such as Rate My Apprenticeship, Not Going to Uni, Success at School. There's loads of them. Milk Round, could list them forever. But using more specific tools to help find those opportunities is also really key. We've touched on LinkedIn, using your social networks. A lot of businesses are using other social networks now. So Instagram and Facebook are two channels that we use to attract people to our jobs. And the final point on that bullet point is around understanding the companies that you want to work for and approaching them directly. So the top tip I would give, if you know what type of industry you might want to get into, let's say it's engineering for argument's sake, it's worth looking at, okay, who are the top engineering companies in the country, or in the country that you're interested in working in, and just literally start at the top, work your way down, explore their careers websites, find out what opportunities they've got. You'll get a sense of what you're eligible for and what you're not. You'll definitely get a sense of the type of company they are. And I think on this point, and we touched on it in the opening session last week, it is really important that you don't get drawn in by the brand. So if it's a large business, it doesn't always mean they're a great company to work for. If they're a small business, it doesn't always mean that they don't have all the opportunities that you want in your career. So it's really important that you think about, yes, absolutely, the values and the ethics of that business, a bit like what I did when I joined the co-op. But importantly, don't worry and concern yourself about the size of that business. Think about what is the opportunity that presents itself within that organization.
And just to jump in there, sorry.
Yeah.
So don't look at the size. I just remember when I was going through school, and it'd be interesting to see what young people think on this session. But I was always about, I'll get in a big company because that's going to really look good on my CV, and I want to have that sort of credibility of getting into a big firm. You went to Lidl, but you say you didn't go to it because it was a big company. You didn't think about that.
No, I mean, I think the key point there is in an interview, it's very unlikely now. It's very unlikely actually that many organisations would make you stand out on your CV. People have perceptions as to what businesses are like to work for, but actually in an interview scenario, you're asked the question around the experiences that you've had. And that is about the job, the role, the position that you took in said business. So it's less about, okay, I've got this amazing brand on my CV. Yeah, Apple's an amazing place to work, or Google, or Co-op, or Lidl, whoever, big companies and big names. But actually, if the job that I didn't give me any experience, and it didn't give me, I didn't enjoy it, I didn't throw myself into it because the opportunity was limited, the support was not there, I'm not going to be able to articulate myself as well as somebody who has had that, but in a smaller organization, and I then won't get the job. So it's less common now that businesses will recruit based upon, the names that are on your CV as such.
Yeah, and just before Danny goes on, guys, do put in the chat box if you're thinking you'd rather a big or a smaller company, or indeed if you're listening to what Danny's saying there and actually just thinking that doesn't make a difference. So just be interesting to see what side of the fence you were thinking beforehand, because I've never looked at it like that, Danny, before. But I think what you're saying there makes a lot of sense. Just go for what that company could offer you.
Yeah, I think it's about, for me, it's forget brand, forget size. It's what does the business stand for? Does it align to what your interests are, your values, what your values are? So, for example, if you're hugely passionate about sustainable packaging, then probably don't go and work for an organization that doesn't really care about the environment and invests heavily in fossil fuels, for argument's sake. So you've got to really think about on an individual basis and for what's aligned to your values. And that comes on to that point around doing your research. Do your research about the employer, understand what they're about. Use LinkedIn, news people that work there, speak to them. How is it to work at the Co-op? What's the experience like? Really use the tools that are available to you, particularly online, to do so. And if it's about understanding what an organization is like a retailer, go into the store and speak to the colleagues, understand what it's about to work in these environments. Obviously, wear a mask and keep your distance at the moment is probably what I would say. I think the final point here is around not focusing on the job title. It's so easy to look at a job title and go, wow, that's such a glamorous job. But actually, if you focus just on the job title and don't get under the skin of what that job actually is, it could sound amazing, but it's really not what you're expecting, or it's not going to give you the experience that you want or the opportunities that you want. So a job title is really helpful to give you a really high level overview as to, is that for me? Is that in the area that I'm interested in? But it's the next layer down, which we'll come on to now, is really understanding what the job is actually about, and you'll find that in the job advert, sometimes known as the job description as such.
Danny,
Okay.
I'm just gonna come in a second, because I do a lot of sessions with students, and it is always a couple of questions that they will always ask is always around how do I display those behaviors? If I've never done those jobs before, yeah, I can go into a shop and I can have a look at what the job is about itself and I can see that. But if I've never done it before, how do I talk about the skills? And also another thing I want to say is that listen to what Danny says about the job and understanding the job itself. Forget the title, forget the company. Is it something that you are genuinely going to enjoy doing? If it is, then you are going to get more value out of it. You're going to throw yourself into it a lot better. And you're going to get up every day in the morning thinking, I'm excited to go to work today. I know that sounds silly. You might think that's a bit ridiculous, but trust me, years ago, I had a great job that paid me 3 times as much as what I get paid now. And I did it for a month and a half, and I hated every single morning. I got up every morning and I hated it. I wanted the day to finish before it started. I quit, I left, and I went to work in coffee shops and hospitality because that's what I loved, even if it was rubbish pay. But I loved it, and I've never looked back. So think about these things. Granny's right. Don't look at just the company and the job title. Look at what the job is, and is that's going to excite you? Does it push your buttons that you have at the moment that excite you? And this is where looking at the job description is going to be really important. But I said earlier, people start to think about, Danny, well, how am I going to evidence these things, you know? So I'm guessing you're going to take us on a little journey. We're going to look at this activity, look at a job advert, and then start to understand. So back to you, Danny. I'm going to stop talking. But
no, thank you, Chris. I think we need to have a word about hashtag Max needs a pay rise.
Yeah, I know. I was cringing at that point, and there's nothing against the pay policy at Pathway CTM, guys. We can take this bit out the video edit. It's a good point, Matt. Good point.
So before we just go into the activity in a second, I talked about there kind of getting under the skin of a job, understanding what it actually is to do a job. And whilst you can go to a store and speak to people, you can look at LinkedIn, you can look at places like Glassdoor, or Rate My Apprenticeship if it's about an apprenticeship, which will help you get a real picture as to the type of industry, business, and the roles that are on offer and what they're actually about. But the first place, and actually one of the most important tools in any recruitment process, is the job advert. It sounds really simple, but the amount of people that I meet, candidates that I speak to, who apply for jobs and don't actually read the advert is scary. But what is in the advert is not just helpful to you in sense of understanding whether it's right, whether this job's the right job for me. Am I interested in it? Can I do it? But also it'll help you further down the line when it comes to interview, because hidden within the words of that advert are effectively what the business will be looking for. And usually that means what might they actually be asking you at interview. So reading the job advert for me is really, really key. Some are written better than others, but on the whole, they'll always contain the right information. So what I want everybody to do on the screen in a second, we'll be showing you an advert, a real advert for a job which we call the Member Pioneer role. So that is essentially, it's a part-time role. It's working within our communities, paid by the co-op. And what we're looking for you to do here is to have a quick read over that. We'll call it 5 minutes or so, just shy of that. A quick flick over. And what I'm looking for in the chat, or raise your hand, or let me know what it is that you think as a co-op, as a recruiter, and ultimately as the interviewer, might I be looking for in this advert. So we'll give it a couple of minutes. I don't know, Chris, Max,
cool. I don't mind reading it out just because I'll probably appreciate that. So just to be really clear then, so we're looking for what the recruiter is looking for.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. Okay, so here we go. So we're looking for a member pioneer to join us at Co-op, working 4 hours a week, 16 across the month. In this unique role, you'll be focused on bringing people together to make a difference in your community. That means talking to Co-op members, colleagues, and community groups we support. By building relationships with and connecting these people, you'll be the catalyst for new ideas, initiatives, and projects. Oh, Danny, I'm sounding interested in this one, actually. Develop an action plan to support building stronger and more resilient communities. Establish and run local community forums. Build a strong network locally using social media and digital platforms. Understand your community needs, keeping your ear to the ground. Keep on top of activity in your community, which could partner with to support your plan. Prioritize your time, make your hours count, and focusing on opportunities to make the biggest difference. Co-op member pioneer. What are we looking for here then, Danny? Just some key bits of information to stand out for us. Maybe put it in the chat box.
Yeah. So if you can have if everyone can have a think, what might we be looking for? So if I'm a recruiter, if I'm looking for a candidate to join this role, what are the kind of things that the candidates will need? What might they be able to? What might they need to be able to do? What might they have to work? I think the answer to that one's pretty obvious at the top there.
It's almost like, what is the perfect candidate, right?
Yeah, effectively, yeah.
But also similarly, it breaks down Danny's point as well. And this is something that I used to see across when I used to do early career recruitment, and I see it when I do school sessions now. We talk about it. Do your research, take the time beforehand to really dissect this and understand the information that is in there. Don't just skim over it, look over it. It's going to be, the more research you do on it beforehand, the better prepared you're going to be and the better decisions you're going to make for your future. And we've got some good things coming in the chat box already. People saying about they've spotted the words talking to, which is about communication skills, have experience with their network platforms. So we're starting to pick out those bits. that it says that it's a part-time worker. Danny, how many times is that frustrating as an interviewer when you're talking to somebody about a role and it is a part-time role and they tell you, oh yeah, I'm really looking forward to working full-time as a whatever, and it's not even what that job description is? How frustrating is that?
Yeah, really frustrating. And actually, as frustrating it is for us, but it's also really frustrating for candidates, because you've effectively spent lots of hours working through that recruitment, but the candidates spent lots of their own time going through that process as well. So save yourself some time is probably what my advice would be, and read the advert is where we would go. And I think the important thing to call out here is that there are some companies and there are some recruiters out there, not at the Co-op thankfully, who will put very unrealistic and actually unnecessary criteria in job adverts. And unfortunately that does exist. So I think it is absolutely about understanding what the employer is looking for. There shouldn't be anything in an advert which is unnecessary to be as inclusive as possible. But we've had some really good comments in the chat here. So it sounds like the colleagues that we've got on the call today, they're on the track of the Member Pioneer job, which is great.
So yeah, good organisational skills, computer literate, good communication skills. And I do like what Aditya put at the top there, talking to equals, communication skills ultimately. So you're trying to think, what do they want? And then how can I relay what I've got in terms of my transferable skills, what we learned about last week. Digital skills, social media, digital platforms. Again, what experience have I got of that? Did I enjoy it? Am I passionate about that area? Someone who knows the area, that's interesting. So is it a local role, for example? Should I be applying to Danny's role if I live in Kent, when actually it needs to be in a certain role? Like, where could I find out that information? Is it on the job description? Danny, just before we go into the next step of this, when you were applying for Lidl, straight from university, I guess it was grad schemes you were going for. Were you highlighting all of the different grad schemes and doing it that way? And my question to you is, with your experience now, would you have done it a different way, or do you think you did well when you saved yourself time and you did it in an efficient way back then?
So I actually took the Times Top 100 graduate employers, worked from 1 down to 100. Whilst it's a great place to start to understand what employers actually offer graduate positions, although I would say that most of those are larger organisations in that table.
That's the newspaper, right? The Sunday Times, is it?
It is. I think it's in the Times. Yeah.
Yeah, I think
It is in the Times.
Yeah.
There's a couple of them around, Guardian 300 and Times Top 100 as well. But yeah, I started on that list, working my way down. I think the only thing upon reflection and the advice I would give myself if I was to do that again would be, before you just randomly look at organizations, do your research behind which are the ones that you want to spend more time on, i.e. understand what is the opportunity that I'm really looking for. That goes back to my first point. So what area of industry do I want to look for? I mean, I ended up looking at engineering organizations. I have no interest in engineering as a career. So save yourself a bit of time, have a think about that up front, and almost shortlist those employers before delving into the research.
Great. And just one quick point, Danny, why didn't you have any interest in engineering? So that process of you going, that's not for me, that's also a skill, isn't it? Is it just down to interest when you read about it?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, interest. I actually wanted to be a teacher when I left school, went to university, ended up studying business, and then my interest moved into more that kind of commercial side of things, and ended up taking a job as a buyer. But I knew that I didn't want to go into engineering from speaking to family members who are in that industry and my own personal interests, really. So yeah.
Okay, Danny, we've got some really great comments coming in. How are we doing? Are we doing this in the right way, do you think?
I think the comments that are coming through here are pretty much hitting the nail on the head. There's one which I've actually not seen explicitly mentioned, which we'll come on to in a sec. But yeah, I'm loving the interpretation of, talking to is about communication, prioritizing is about time management, and that for me is the really key part of understanding a job advert. Many businesses can use really nice fluffy words to represent essentially what are employability skills. What is it that we're actually looking for? So Max, I don't know if you want to reveal the answers. Thank you very much.
Here we are, reveal.
So the first one I've highlighted there, which Kassam called out earlier on, 4 hours a week, 16 across the month. So we know by looking at that already, 4 hours, it's a part-time job. So realistically, if I'm looking at this job to support a family, or I want to save up for a holiday, 4 hours a week is probably not going to be able to allow you to do that. Again, helping you make that decision as to what the right opportunity is for you. There is, I would call out, there's usually a flag about whether it's a full-time or a part-time job at the top in the title on this, but not on this advert as such. So we've talked about, and so there was some comments in the chat there around networking and bringing people together as well. So yeah, great that we've covered that one off. Talking to co-op members, colleagues and community groups. So we've talked about communication there. So we've got networking and communication. Building relationships was the one that we didn't necessarily see come out in the chat box. So whilst networking is important, there is a slightly different approach, and it's more behavioral based. So how do you approach relationships? Do you establish common ground first, and all of that side of things? So that's the one thing that wasn't necessarily highlighted to my knowledge in the chat. Although if I have missed that, I apologize. New initiatives, ideas and projects, so being creative. So we were looking for people who can think outside of the box and think on their feet. Developing an action plan probably taps into prioritizing, so being organized and structured in the way that people approach their work. Networking, we've covered that one off. And keeping on top of activity in your community. This taps into both organizational skills and that kind of understanding of how the kind of the world of your member pioneer works. But actually, a point that somebody raised as well was around understanding the local community, and that's about knowledge. So understanding what's going on, having those networks in place to help you understand, oh, is that school closing down over there? If they are, can we do something to save it from closing down? That kind of thing. So it's all about knowledge, there.
Danny, this is such a useful exercise. Guys, do you agree with me in terms of it really would help me in terms of looking at the job description? Because for me, I've done my strengths profile. So what I would be doing, I'd be writing down on one side of my paper, my strengths, my passions, what I enjoy, so to speak. And hopefully I know them in my head as well. But sometimes at the start you don't. And then I'd be writing down and bringing out exactly like Danny's done here, because I'll be looking at this, Danny, going, bringing people together. Well, my main strength for my strength report is communication skills. So bang, I'm good at that, and speaking, talking, good at that. Yeah. As you'll find out for the next 10 minutes, I'll be talking the whole time. I'm joking. Building relationships, I'm good at that and I enjoy it. I think that's one, so I'm still loving this at the moment. Get to social media and digital platforms. Now, I might want to ask the question here, Danny, how big part of that is, how big part of the role is that? Because I really hate getting involved in social media and digital. And then I might look at prioritizing my time. That was one of my weaknesses in my strengths profile. But, I like the overall look at the role and I want to give it a go. So it's probably worth me applying. That's kind of how I would look at that if that was me, for example.
So the thing to call out here is that whilst these are the kind of things that we would like in a candidate, you don't have to always tick all of the boxes. This is almost the ideal candidate, but we know that not everybody ticks all of the boxes. Importantly to call out, so people use the word tech savvy quite a lot. And actually, the question I always ask, particularly our business managers, is what do you mean by that? Do you need somebody to code, in which case that is being tech savvy, or actually do you need someone just to be able to use an iPad? That's a big difference between the two. So asking questions at the interview, I think, is really, really important to understand how much social media will you need to use. Chris, just to genuinely answer your question, it is just about being able to post content on social media as a member pioneer to the right networks at the right time with the right words.
No, it's great. And it's a really good, important point, because I was doing what a lot of people do there, spot one thing they're not good at and not apply to it, which you don't want to be doing, do you?
No, not at all. I think, Chris, you made a really good point. Listing what your strengths are, listing what your skills are, and building up that library of examples against each one is really important. And that'll help you understand when you go through that kind of sifting process yourself as to what jobs are right for me. That's when you can really then start to think about, which are the right opportunities for me to apply for. And there's no reason why you shouldn't, for want of a better phrase, chance your arm. If you think that it's just a role that's really interested to you, if you meet the minimum criteria, then why not go for it? The worst thing that can happen is an employer can say, we don't think you're right for this opportunity. That is the worst that will happen.
Yeah, exactly. Danny, that's so helpful. Thank you so much. Let's have a look on the reading. Okay, sorry. this is one more slide on that, isn't it?
I mean, I've summarized most of that, to be
Yeah.
honest. Reading the advert can help you make the right application. But you've, in all of those comments that everybody's talked through in the chat there, they are all the kind of things that we actually look for at interview. So we'll be asking people questions around, how do you build relationships? Tell me about when you've organized, you organize yourself in an appropriate way. How have you linked in with your local community before? What's your role in that community? So all of those things that are in the advert, which we've pulled out as almost entry criteria, they're actually also screening criteria when it comes to interview. And that can help somebody get ahead of the game really early when it comes to building up those examples that you might be asked at interview.
That's great. Max, let's move us on, because I now want to look at the roles at the co-op, and just to give an example of what type of role, and maybe put this into layman's terms now about what we've just learned, and maybe how I could either say no to these initially or say yes to them, and what research what I need to know about these different departments and roles within the co-op, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we've got time to cover off every single job that we ever recruited into the co-op. But going back to when I described who we are, there's loads of opportunities and roles across the whole of our organisation, from customer team members in our food stores, full-time, part-time, in our funeral care business, legal services, into apprenticeships as a solicitor, administrative roles, and every other role that sits around that in our business. And I think the important thing to call out is that we're very fortunate being a business our size that we have opportunities at very senior levels, but we've also got a lot of opportunities at entry level. That doesn't mean that the job is easy. It doesn't mean that it's a simple job, but what it means is that we're not needing somebody to have experience to join that position. So that could be an apprenticeship at level 2 in our food stores. It could be a customer service advisor in our head office in Manchester, or even a member pioneer. So that is an actual job. It's 4 hours a week. It's paid. Why wouldn't you look at doing that as a young person on the call today? We're always looking for younger individuals to join our member pioneer team. It's an opportunity for you to get paid, get some work experience, which is great. And now I've given you the inside information about how to go about approaching that role.
And Danny, just on this slide, so now I've looked at the job descriptions, for example. So maybe I've whittled it down. I like the co-op, I like the values about the brand and what it does. I'm interested in your company as a whole. And then maybe now I'm looking at these certain areas. I'm not interested in legal, like you're not interested in engineering. Funeral care doesn't excite me, just before even looking into it. You might prove me wrong. Maybe not food, but tech, yep, customer service, speaking to people. That is what I'm interested in. Let's have a look more into these areas. I guess the next thing I'm thinking about is, right, progression. Where can I go with it? Because I'm really ambitious. So now I sort of started to narrow down. I've got the right company with the values. Now I'm looking into kind of the job role and the sector within that. And now the next thing I'm thinking about is, where could I go with it? And is it worth my time, or is it a dead end job, which you would hope it wouldn't be, so to speak?
Yeah, definitely not for funeral care. So I think for me the piece there is about doing your research around the business. Many organizations on their career sites will have progression routes clearly defined, so you can see what that next step is. If you enter it here, where can it get you? Where can it get you to? If you look on our careers website, all of our industry areas have those, and particularly our apprenticeship site as well has us very clearly detailed. And you can use apprenticeships and qualifications as a way of progression as well, outside of just kind of moving up the career ladder as it was.
No, definitely. So, Danny, you've given us some insight into member pioneers. Let's give a bit more insight into some of your application processes at the co-op, because a quarter of young people on this want to maybe get involved.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a reasonably standard recruitment process at the co-op. A lot of our applications are online, if not most of them, and that's through the homepage, jobs.coop.co.uk. Candidates will search for a job, so you would see what vacancies are on there. And then once you've applied for the opportunity, and you'll go through a basic kind of application form, name, email, phone number, that kind of thing. You'll be asked to complete what we call our culture fit assessment. So is co-op right for you? And that's all about helping you understand whether we're actually the right business from a values and an ethics point of view. Once you've completed that, and if you pass that assessment, you'll then be invited to the next stage. We'll screen your application just to make sure that you meet the minimum criteria for the role. So things like, for argument's sake, if you need to be able to drive, you need to have a driving license, have you, so that you've got a driving license, that kind of criteria. You'll then go through to a video interview or a telephone interview. Video will be recorded, so it's pre-recorded, So you'll answer one technical question, which could be something like, talk to me about your organizational skills. It could be as broad as that. Record your video and then we'll watch that back against the criteria, or we'll have a telephone conversation with yourself. After that, you'll then go through to a face-to-face or a video interview, depending on what part of the organization you're applying to. Most of our roles have gone online to video, but we do have opportunities still face-to-face. That's all about behaviors. So what we're not looking for there is somebody to come in any of our roles actually with, you know, depths of experience in specific areas. We're looking for those behavioral pieces. So essentially, what's your natural tendency? What's your natural reaction in a situation? And that's across things like, how do you invest in your own development? How have you built relationships? How do you think creatively, as well, all aligned to our co-op values, which would be a big hint if you're going to do any research about the co-op. If you passed your face-to-face or your final stage interview, you're then made an offer, which is a contractual offer. Some of our roles require you to do some sort of kind of pre-employment screening checks. So that's things like, can you legally work in the UK? Do you have the qualifications if they're required, if you can prove them? Or some things, sometimes we ask for credit checks and things like that as well. And then you start in the role. So you're off to go, ready to go.
Like it. Thanks, Danny. And this is, of course,
that link that you can, the link that you can see on the screen there is our homepage. Have a look on there. There's loads of content on there, lots of case studies and blogs, and information about apprenticeships as well. And there's the CV builder, which I reference, which can be found at the bottom of that homepage.
Totally good. Have we got the next slide there, Max?
We've got questions.
If there are any questions, guys, do fire them. We are out of time, but there's always some time for some questions. If there's anything at all, we'll make sure that we answer them. Danny, you're right to hold on for a couple more minutes if we do.
Yeah, I do have a call, but I'm happy to hold on.
No, it's okay. I just really want to quickly summarize from my point of view, Danny. The key takeaways for me, I think, were forget the brand, forget the size of the employer. Just go, go in with what it's going to offer you and the opportunities. That's something maybe I wasn't thinking about. And get under the skin of the job title, which I think we did really well with that excellent exercise. Max, any takeaways from your point of view?
I would also say that it's a case about reading that job description, aligning it to what you're interested in, what your strengths are. Listen to what Danny said. Chance your arm. Have a go. Back yourself. Get in there and put yourself in front of those people, because you're never going to meet 100% of the criteria. If you do, you're in the wrong job interview. But even if you meet 80%, back yourself, get in there and show them who you are and why they need you. Because remember, they have you in front of them because they like something about you already. Otherwise, they wouldn't have invited you in. So confirm what they like about you and show them a little bit more. And having done that research that Danny spoke about beforehand is going to put you in a great position in an interview. Remember also, for all of these things that Danny spoke about, all of these processes and getting into the co-op, I've sat with the co-op and talked about their recruitment process. If you want help getting in, email us at student@pathwayctm.com. I can help you with those applications. I can't get you the job because I can't give you the skills, but we can prepare you so that you're ready to show how good you are and why you're right for the job. Somebody has got a question. I know Danny's got to go. Chris and I can answer it as well.
Yeah. I think we should let Danny go. Danny, any final comments from you? I really appreciated the job description activity. I think that was really, really great. But appreciate your time, and final comments from you.
No, just a massive thanks for having me here today. I think I would echo all of those points, but the key things for me are, understand the company that you're interested in. Don't look at the brand though, or the size of the organization. Think about the detail that sits behind the job, which you've referenced there around, read and read again. The job advert, and to your point, Max, I think for me, anybody, irrespective of how old you are, whether you're 16 or 60, back yourself, because everyone's got an equal opportunity for the role.
Danny, we'll say goodbye. We'll just wrap up ourselves. But thanks very much for your time.
Thanks very much, everyone. Have a good afternoon.
Danny.
Bye.
Thanks, Danny. And just looking ahead to next week, Max. So next week we've got Severn Trent, the water company, who've got jobs all around England, particularly in some areas as well where they're specialised. And they're going to be talking about strengths in particular. So looking at how you can identify your strengths. We'll talk about Capfinity and how we can do that strengths profile. So try and get that strength test. It'll take you 20 minutes. Try and do that before next Wednesday's session, because it will tell you what you're really strong at, and it'll also tell you where your weaknesses are based on calculations and algorithms through the questioning there. It really is a useful resource, and we're giving it to you for free. So next week will be really interesting to talk about how you can talk about your strengths and how you can dig them out, and what examples you can also use to talk about at interviews with the likes of Danny. Max, have you done that strengths profile as well?
I've done a couple of different strengths profiles, and I've done the Capfinity one. My piece of advice for them is when you go to do them, don't think about the question too much. Go with whatever you think is the right answer first, because that's what it's all about. Just go for it. Who are you? What are you thinking at that moment in time? Just go for it, because that's your natural part. The other thing I will say is next week's session is with Severn Trent Water. We've had Co-op today, two very different companies. But remember what we've said, these companies are big. They have so many different roles. Look at Co-op. Every one of these big companies will have IT jobs, will have finance jobs, will have HR jobs, will have people jobs, will have management jobs, all different sectors. So never look at the company name and put them in a box. Have a look at what their roles are, what their values are, what they can give you. Not just what you can give them, but what they can give you and how they can take you forward in life. The more research and prep you do now, the better position you're going to be in the future. And hopefully over this next 7 weeks, well, it's going to be 6 weeks next week, the more that you work with us, the more confident you will be going into those processes and discovering those opportunities. You'll be set for life because you'll have the right one and you'll be in a good place. Appreciated.
Yeah, guys. Hey, and just to wrap it up, do put in the chat box any comments from today's session, any takeaways. I reckon the best bit was that job description exercise. We've not done something like that before. But I just think it can really help, because you'll waste hours if you don't get that right, looking at job descriptions, so to speak. Tom, great from you. He really enjoyed the session, really informative. Tom, it's great to see you on another one of our sessions. Well done. He keeps coming back for more, and it's great to see week in, week out. He's there. Some other comments coming in as well personally, which is great. Good information. Really enjoyed it. Thank you. Well done, guys, for turning up to that. Max, we're going to be back on next week, aren't we, at same time, 3 o'clock?
You certainly are. Listen, next week, so those that are asking about the strengths profile, we will send them through to you after this session. Everybody that's attended, they'll be sent to you in an email, so keep an eye on them. The link is there for next week's session. Use it. Get yourself signed up now and get in. Get prepared for it. Do your homework. The more prepared you are, the more chances you are of being successful. What was the other question you asked me, Chris?
I can't remember, Max. We've got to get off now, I think, and complete our day. But absolute legends for turning up, guys. Well done, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you very much, everyone. Have a good week.
Cheers, Max. See you in a bit.